Hi, Cancer. I feel like something is beginning to shift in the energy of this reading. And honestly, it feels like the moment you found this message wasn't completely random. Because somewhere out there, someone is starting to see things very differently than they did before. I'm picking up on a lot of emotions that were never spoken out loud, a lot of thoughts that have been held back, and a lot of realizations that probably should have happened a long time ago. What's interesting is, this person truly believed they still had plenty of time. They believed that no matter how distant things became, Cancer would still be there. You would still be the one who understood them. You would still be the one trying to hold this connection together. But something has changed, and that change is becoming impossible for them to ignore. Because for the first time, they're asking themselves a question they've never really wanted to face before. What happens if Cancer stops waiting? I keep hearing that question over and over in the energy of this reading. Because here's the thing, this isn't a question that's showing up in Cancer's mind. It's showing up in theirs. And honestly, it feels like they're realizing something much later than they should have. Not because Cancer suddenly said something dramatic, not because there was a huge argument, and not because some unexpected event turned everything upside down. It's happening because the silence has started to last a little longer than usual. You know, sometimes people don't truly recognize the value of something until it stops spawn-spinning in the way they've grown accustomed to. The Two of Pentacles card comes through here, and what's interesting is, the first thing I pick up isn't a choice. It's someone who's become very comfortable keeping everything suspended in the middle. They always thought they had more time. They always thought they could deal with this later. They always believed that if they pulled away for a while, it wouldn't really matter. If they disappeared for a few days, it wouldn't really matter. If they weren't ready to face their feelings yet, it wouldn't really matter. Because somewhere in the back of their mind, Cancer would still be there. Cancer would still understand. Cancer would still be the one trying to hold this connection together. I feel like this is someone who tends to come close and then disappear. There were moments when they felt incredibly present, very attentive, very gentle. Moments that made you believe things were finally moving forward. And then, they would pull away again. They'd go quiet, they'd vanish, or act as though what had just happened wasn't all that important. And the strange thing is, they never truly believed they were losing you. They just thought they needed more time, more space, a little more freedom, and they assumed Cancer would keep waiting. The Six of Cups card appears here almost like a familiar memory, and honestly, it feels like this person became very accustomed to your presence, like a place they could always return to, a voice they could always find again, someone who would still welcome them back no matter how exhausting the outside world became. And that's exactly what made them take it for granted. Because when something always seems available, people often forget what it feels like to lose it. But Cancer, something is changing. And I don't feel like this is a loud kind of change. Not the kind where someone slams a door shut. Not the kind where someone announces they're done loving. Actually, it's the opposite. It's quiet. It's mature. It's different. You're beginning to pour more energy into yourself. You're beginning to stop carrying everything alone. You're beginning to stop quenching answers that someone else isn't ready to give. You're beginning to stop carrying the emotional weight of two people. And that shift is confusing them. The Moon card comes through here with that feeling. They don't fully understand what's happening. They still feel you. They still think about you. They still miss you. But they can no longer feel that familiar sense of waiting. And that's where the anxiety starts creeping in. There are moments when they pick up their phone and then put it back down. Moments when they think about reaching out and then hesitate. Because for the first time, they're not completely sure you'll respond the way you always have. They're not completely sure you're still standing in the same place. They're not completely sure they can continue pulling you close and pushing you away the way they used to. And honestly, I think that's the moment everything starts shifting. Not because Cancer changed to prove a point, but because Cancer finally started placing themselves in a more important position within their own life. There's a very strange feeling here. Almost like this person is standing in front of a door they always assumed would remain open. But for the first time, they're realizing they may actually have to knock. And what makes them uneasy isn't the possibility that the door is closed. It's the fact that they no longer know whether the person on the other side is still waiting for them. I think that's the moment fear starts creeping in. Not the kind of fear that hits all at once. Not the kind where they wake up one morning and suddenly realize just how much they love Cancer. It's quieter than that, slower than that, almost like a small empty space appearing in their life. At first, they barely notice it. They keep going to work. They keep seeing the same familiar people. They keep trying to stay busy. But what's strange is, the busier they become, the more noticeable that empty space feels. The Page of Swords card comes through here, and it makes me feel like this person has started paying closer attention. They're noticing things they used to overlook. They're noticing that Cancer isn't showing up the way they used to. The familiar signals aren't there anymore. The conversations don't naturally get pulled back together the way they once did. And that feeling that no matter how long they stayed silent, someone would always be there to close the distance, that feeling isn't there anymore either. And honestly, it's making them restless. I feel like there are moments when they tell themselves they're overthinking, that everything is fine. That Cancer is probably just busy, probably focused on their own life. But the more they try to calm themselves down, the harder it becomes to stop thinking, because their intuition is telling them something else. There are these very brief moments, just a few seconds, but they're enough to make panic rise up inside them. Moments where they catch themselves thinking, what if they really let go this time? The Nine of Swords card shows up here, and the first thing I feel isn't heartbreak. It's sleeplessness. It's thoughts that keep repeating themselves. It's conversations happening over and over inside their head that never actually get spoken aloud. They start remembering all the times Cancer tried to understand them. All the times Cancer was more patient than they needed to be. All the times Cancer gave them another chance, and another one, and then another one after that. Back then, those things felt normal, almost expected. But looking back from where they are now, they don't feel normal anymore. They feel precious. And that's when they begin wondering whether they've taken that love for granted for far too long. Honestly, I don't think this person has all the answers yet. They're still struggling with themselves. Part of them wants to believe everything will somehow go back to the way it was. But another part of them is beginning to realize that Cancer isn't standing in the same place anymore. You know that feeling when someone always leaves a light on for you? You don't think much about that light until the day it isn't there anymore. Not because they hate you, not because they're trying to punish you, simply because they've learned how to live their own life. And honestly, I think that's what's making this person uneasy. It's not anger, it's not distance, it's not even silence, it's peace. Cancer seems more at peace, more grounded, less dependent on getting answers from them. And that's forcing this person to face a truth they've avoided for a very long time. Love doesn't always stay in one place waiting forever. The Five of Cups card comes through like a very quiet wave of emotion, not dramatic, not loud. Just those random moments during an ordinary day when something reminds them of you, a song, a place, a familiar phrase, a small memory that once seemed insignificant. And suddenly, everything starts coming back. For the first time, they aren't looking at those memories with certainty. They're looking at them with regret. Because the more they remember, the more they realize there were things they failed to appreciate when they still had the chance. I feel like this person is standing between two very different emotions. Hope on one side, fear on the other. Hope that Cancer is still there. Fear that they've realized everything too late. And what's really interesting is that they're starting to want to know more about you. They want to know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how you're moving forward. But the more they observe, the more they realize they don't understand you the way they once thought they did. It's almost like a door is slowly beginning to close. And for the first time, they're starting to feel the pressure to move before that door closes completely. I think this is the stage where they can no longer keep distracting themselves from what's really happening. Because once the fear settles down even just a little, what's left is usually the truth. And honestly, the truth isn't always easy to look at. It feels like they're sitting alone with memories they've spent a long time trying to avoid. There's no one left to blame, no outside noise, no familiar excuses, just them and what actually happened. The Judgment card comes through here as a very deep awakening. Not the kind of awakening that comes from a prediction, not some magical sign from the universe. It's much more personal than that. It's the moment they start being honest with themselves. And wow, what they see isn't comfortable at all. They begin remembering all the times Cancer tried to open up, all the times Cancer asked very simple questions. Questions that at the time felt annoying to them. Questions that felt like pressure. Questions they convinced themselves were asking for too much. But looking back now, Cancer wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. You weren't asking them to be perfect. You weren't asking them to become someone else. You just wanted to know what was going on inside their heart, what they were feeling, where they truly stood in this connection. And the more they think about that, the harder it becomes to ignore the lump in their throat, because the things Cancer needed most were the very things they kept avoiding. Clarity, honesty, presence, Some people are afraid of commitment. Some people are afraid of getting hurt. But honestly, I feel like this person was afraid of something even deeper. They were afraid of being seen, afraid of revealing the most vulnerable parts of themselves, afraid of admitting that they needed love too, that they needed someone too, that they carried insecurities just like everyone else. So whenever emotions started feeling too real, they pulled away. Whenever the connection became deeper, they created distance. At the time, they thought they were protecting themselves. But the more they reflect on it now, the more they realize they were hurting both of you. The Three of Swords card carries the feeling of truths that were delayed for far too long, apologies that were never spoken, conversations that should have happened a long time ago, moments where, honestly, just a little more courage might have changed everything. And you know what hurts them the most? It's not that Cancer pulled away. It's that they're finally beginning to understand how lonely Cancer must have felt inside this connection. They're starting to see all the times you tried to be strong, all the times you said you were okay when you really weren't, all the times you continued loving while receiving very little certainty in return. Certain memories are coming back with incredible clarity, as if they never disappeared at all. A look, a conversation, a word of encouragement, a quiet moment shared between two people. Suddenly, all of it feels more alive than ever. And for the first time, they're not looking at those memories with indifference. They're looking at them with regret. The Lover's card comes through here with the feeling of a very important inner choice. Not a choice between you and someone else, but a choice between who they've been and who they're becoming. Because they can no longer pretend this connection meant nothing. They can no longer keep telling themselves that everything will simply fade away on its own. They can no longer keep running from what their heart has known for a very long time. I feel something shifting inside them in a powerful way. A layer of protection is beginning to crack. A truth is slowly being accepted. And the more they accept it, the more they realize they may have lost more than just a relationship. They may have lost someone who loved them with a level of sincerity they were once afraid to receive. And what's interesting is, they still don't know exactly what to do with that realization. They only know they can't go back to who they were before. They can't pretend everything is the same. They can't pretend Cancer never changed their life. And that realization, well, that's what's pulling them closer and closer to a decision they've spent a very long time trying to avoid. I feel a very specific kind of exhaustion in this energy, not exhaustion from love, and honestly, not exhaustion from Cancer either. It's the exhaustion that comes from running away from something you've known deep down for a very long time. Some people spend years building walls around their heart. They learn how to control their emotions. They learn how not to depend on anyone. They learn how to leave before they can be left behind. And at first glance, that can look like strength. But after a while, those same walls can start feeling like a prison. And I think this person is beginning to see that. The Eight of Cups card comes through here like a very quiet step forward. No one is forcing them to change. No one is pulling them away from their old life. No one is demanding that they let go of what's familiar. But something inside them is urging them to move, because the things that once made them feel safe aren't giving them that feeling anymore. The surface level conversations, the connections that never go very deep, the emotional coping mechanisms they've leaned on for years, all of it is starting to feel cramped, almost like wearing a shirt that's become too small, but continuing to wear it anyway because it's familiar. I feel like they're taking a long look at the people around them, the influences that shape the way they love, the way they trust, the way they protect themselves, and for the first time, they're asking a difficult question. Did any of that actually make me happy, or did I simply get used to it? Wow, that's not an easy question to answer. Because when people face the truth, they often have to let go of an older version of themselves. The Death card carries that feeling very strongly. Not the ending of a person, but the ending of a version that always avoided, always controlled, always created distance whenever emotions became too real. Honestly, I think they're starting to realize they can't step into a mature kind of love while still carrying those old patterns. They can't keep building walls while hoping to be loved. They can't keep preparing an escape route while wanting genuine connection. They can't keep asking Cancer to stay while making Cancer feel alone. And I think that's what hurts the most. Not because someone pointed it out to them, but because they finally see it themselves. They finally understand. There are private moments no one else knows about. Moments where they sit alone asking themselves why they always react this way. Why they become afraid when someone gets too close. Why every time happiness appears, they somehow find a way to push it away. And honestly, I feel like this is the first time they stop blaming circumstances. They stop blaming the past. They stop blaming other people. Instead, they begin looking inward, and that takes a tremendous amount of courage. The strength card appears here, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like maturity. The kind of maturity that comes from facing parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. The kind that comes from admitting you've made mistakes, admitting you've hurt people, admitting that love isn't a competition about who holds more power, and it isn't a game where the winner is the person who feels less. I feel like they're learning a completely different lesson now. That loving someone doesn't mean controlling them. It doesn't mean testing them. It doesn't mean constantly pushing them away just to see whether they'll come back. Real love asks for presence. It asks for honesty. It asks for the willingness to stay even when things become difficult. And what's interesting is, the more they understand that, the differently they begin seeing Cancer. Not just as someone who loved them, not just as someone who stood beside them, but as someone who unintentionally became a mirror reflecting everything they still needed to heal. I feel something changing very deeply inside them, like a seed that's just beginning to break through the soil after lying dormant for a very long time. No one can fully see it yet. No one knows exactly what it will become, but the change has already begun. And the thing that gives them hope while also frightening them is realizing that if they truly want to move toward Cancer, they won't be able to bring the old version of themselves with them anymore. I feel like this is the point where their thinking starts moving in a much more practical direction. Before this, they spent a lot of time thinking about feelings, thinking about attraction, thinking about what they experienced whenever they were around you. But this energy feels different, more mature, more grounded. Almost like someone quietly asking themselves, what if I'm actually serious about this person? What if I need to become the kind of person they truly deserve? Because this isn't really about fleeting emotions anymore. It's about responsibility. It's about presence. It's about building something that can actually last. The Three of Pentacles card comes through here, and the first feeling I get is effort. Real effort. This person is beginning to understand that love isn't just something you feel. Love is also something you do. It's the things you show up for every day. The small choices that may seem insignificant on their own, but mean everything over time. And honestly, I don't think they fully understood that before. For a long time, they believed feelings were enough. That if two people cared about each other, that should be enough. But life doesn't always work that way. A connection needs more than emotion if it's going to grow. It needs cooperation, trust, clarity, investment from both people. I feel like they're starting to look back at everything Cancer was trying to build. The conversations you wanted to have, the plans you hoped to create together. The times you tried to bring stability into the connection while they were still unsure of themselves. And the more they reflect on it, the more they realize you were never asking for too much. You were simply trying to build something real, something with a foundation, something with a future, something that actually meant something. The King of Pentacles card brings in a very different energy from what we've seen before. Because honestly, I don't feel someone who wants to rely on pretty words anymore. I don't feel someone who wants to survive on emotional promises. I don't feel someone who wants to keep appearing and disappearing whenever their feelings become inconvenient. There's something inside them pushing them to grow up, pushing them toward becoming someone who creates safety instead of uncertainty. And that's a big shift. Because for the first time, they're realizing something important. Cancer doesn't need someone who simply says they love them. Cancer needs someone who shows it. Through actions, through consistency, through the choices they make when nobody is watching. You know, I think this person is starting to think much further ahead than they ever have before. They're no longer asking themselves how to keep this connection alive. They're asking themselves how to protect it, how to nurture it, how to become a steady part of your life. And that realization is causing them to look at other areas of themselves too. Their work, their finances, their goals, the responsibilities they've postponed for far too long. Not because Cancer demanded it, but because they want to feel proud of who they are. They want to feel like when they stand in front of you, they're no longer the person who keeps running. The Hierophant card comes through here as a very deep realization. And wow, I think they're finally beginning to understand the value of commitment. Not commitment that's forced. Not commitment that comes from pressure, but commitment that's chosen, the choice to stay, the choice to grow alongside another person. The choice to keep showing up even when things aren't perfect. That's something they used to fear, and strangely enough, it's becoming something they deeply desire. There are nights when they find themselves thinking about the future more than they used to. Not just wondering whether you still care about them, but wondering, if I were given another chance, what would I do differently? How would I show up? How would I protect this connection? How would I make sure it never reaches this place again? I still feel some fear inside them. Some worry that they may have realized all of this too late. Some fear that Cancer may have already moved too far ahead. But what's different now is that they're no longer letting fear make decisions for them. They're starting to use it as motivation. Because a truth is becoming harder and harder to ignore. If they want to be part of Cancer's future, they're going to have to prove it through more than words. And deep down, I feel a decision beginning to take shape inside their heart. Not a decision built on temporary emotion, not a decision built on loneliness, but a decision rooted in what they genuinely want to create from this point forward. And honestly, the thing that's catching my attention most in this part of the reading isn't even them anymore. It's Cancer, because it feels like throughout this entire journey, they've believed everything revolved around their choices. They thought they were the one deciding when to come closer, when to pull away, when to show up, when to return. But there's something they never fully considered. Cancer has been changing too. Cancer has been growing. Cancer has been learning how to love themselves more. And I think that's exactly what caught them off guard. The Page of Cups card comes through here with a very different feeling. Not the opening of their heart, but the opening of yours. The opening of Cancer's heart in a completely new way. You're no longer pouring all of your energy into waiting. You're no longer spending every day analyzing what they said or what they didn't say. You're no longer waking up wondering whether this person will come back. Something softer is happening. Something gentler. You're starting to return to yourself. You're beginning to find joy in small things again. Beginning to feel peaceful without needing answers from someone else. And wow, that's exactly what's throwing them off balance. Because deep down, they've grown used to feeling your energy moving toward them. They've grown used to knowing that somewhere out there, someone was thinking about them, hoping for them, waiting for them. But that energy doesn't feel the same anymore. It hasn't disappeared. Not completely. It's just no longer centered around them. And honestly, I think this is when they begin understanding what loss actually feels like. Not because you've disappeared. Not because you've walked away forever. But because they're realizing they're no longer the center of your emotional world. That's a powerful realization. And a painful one. There are days when they wonder whether things could somehow go back to the way they were. And then almost immediately another realization follows. Maybe they shouldn't. Because it was the old version of things that created this distance in the first place. The Two of Cups card comes through here with a completely different perspective. This isn't curiosity anymore. This isn't temporary attraction. This isn't the kind of connection that feels exciting one moment and forgotten the next. This is recognition. They're finally recognizing the true value of someone who entered their life and changed it. They're beginning to understand why they keep thinking about Cancer. Why they keep comparing other people to Cancer. Why no matter how far they try to move forward, part of their heart keeps returning to the same place. Because this isn't really about who was right or who was wrong. It's not about who left first or who loved more. It's about finally seeing what they once had and realizing how valuable it truly was. I feel like their biggest fear right now isn't rejection. It's timing. It's the possibility of being too late. Too late to say what should have been said. Too late to repair what should have been repaired. Too late to show Cancer how much they've changed. The Eight of Wands card appears here like energy that's suddenly picking up speed. Something inside them doesn't want to postpone things anymore. Doesn't want to stand still and watch anymore. Doesn't want to keep thinking without acting. Because the longer they wait, the more they can feel the distance growing. And what's interesting is, for the first time, they're beginning to understand what Cancer may have felt all along. The uncertainty, the waiting, the not knowing what comes next. The feeling of wondering whether the other person will move toward you or continue standing still. Hope mixed with anxiety, longing mixed with doubt. Everything feels like it's shifting. The roles are changing, the perspective is changing, and the person who once believed Cancer would always chase after them is now asking a very different question, a much more honest question. Because if they don't take a step forward this time, will there still be an opportunity to tell Cancer everything they've been carrying in their heart for so long? And honestly, maybe the most beautiful part of this entire story isn't whether this person comes back or not. Maybe it's the change that has taken place within both of them. Because sometimes, it's only when one person stops chasing that the other finally sees the value of what they had all along. Sometimes distance doesn't appear to separate people. Sometimes it appears so each person can see themselves more clearly. And I really feel like that's what's happening here. One person is learning how to put themselves first after spending so much time putting everyone else ahead of them. And another person is learning how to love from a place of maturity instead of fear. And wherever this journey eventually leads, I don't think either of them are the same person they once were. Some lessons only reveal themselves when the heart becomes ready to understand them. Some truths can only be seen when we stop trying to control every outcome. And some connections change us forever, even when we once believed we would never change at all. Cancer, if there's one thing that stands out most strongly to me in this reading, it's this. Your value was never measured by how hard you were willing to chase someone. Your value has always lived in the sincerity of your heart, in your ability to love deeply while still learning how to love yourself, in the way you've managed to hold on to your kindness, even after everything you've been through. And wow, that's not something everyone can do. Thank you for spending this time with me. It truly means more than you know. And if this message connected with you in any way, take what resonates with your own journey and gently leave the rest behind. You are important. You are appreciated. And I'm genuinely grateful for the time we've shared together here. I'll see you again in another reading. Until then, Cancer, take good care of your heart, okay? Bye for now.